Welcome to the 2022-2023 FLP final presentations. My name is Amara Onya, and I'm one of the co-directors for FLP this year, and we cannot be more excited to be listening to our final presentations for the fellows. They've worked their butts off for this whole year to work on a leadership project, whether it be on the national team project or a strategy team project. And together they worked with leaderships and leaders within the SNMA to create a project that will be impactful for the future of SNMA. Today, we are lucky to hear from our fellows. And first off, we have our first fellow today, Sarah. I'd like to welcome Sarah to the broadcast.
Hello. Just give me one moment to share my presentation.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We could not be more excited.
It's currently uploading.
Just to give you a little bit more background on what the FLP program is, we take 20 fellows, 20 pre-meds, and 20 medical students, and they go through a leadership journey throughout the year with the SNMA. This leadership journey is to be able to create a pipeline of future leaders, not only for the SNMA, but for the future of medicine. So if you're interested in this and you would like to do something like this for the year, definitely reach out and apply. Okay, so let's get started, Sarah. Here's your presentation and you can take it away.
All right, great. Hi, guys. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present today. My name is Sarah Treme. I am an undergraduate at Johns Hopkins University. I will be graduating this May. I'm studying public health and psychology, and I will be applying the cycle to medical school. So the title of my NFLP project was called Metrics for AMAC Satisfaction, and I'll go into it in a bit. So here is a presentation agenda, what we'll be going through, the background of my project, the importance and impacts, the objectives, the timeline of what I was working on, the deliverables of what I actually worked on. We'll talk a little bit about the sustainability of my project, and then we'll go into acknowledgements and a quick conclusion. So like I mentioned, my national project is titled Metrics for AMAC Satisfaction, and I worked under the Convention Planning Committee. So the overview is that the committee designed this project because they wanted a fellow to investigate which AMAC sessions were popular and which were not so popular, with the purpose of being, identifying ways we can improve the AMAC experience for all conference attendees. So my tasks were sort of twofold. First, my job was to, compile the important information from previous AMAC post-session surveys to gather information on the popularity of sessions, with the goal being to kind of rethink which sessions were popular or need updating. And then second, I assisted with, the archiving and analyzing of the data concerning which speakers and sessions were popular, not so popular, so that the convention planning committee could, use this information for years to come in AMAC planning. Okay. So why is this project important? Well, we know that each year AMAC, it brings students from all levels of medical education across the nation, and it's consistently one of the largest gatherings of underrepresented minority medical students. So we want to make sure that such, a monumental and momentous conference is done its due diligence, making sure that each session is productive, fruitful, and well received by each and every conference attendee. And then, on a more personal note, I decided to work on this project because I actually got the opportunity to attend AMAC for the first time last year. And it was a really, transformative and fulfilling experience. And so I really wanted to find a way to kind of contribute to this aspect of the SNMA. So my objectives, I'll go into that. So I formed sort of four main objectives for my project. The first was to simply identify which AMAC sessions were popular and not so popular by examining survey data. The second was to, investigate the reasons why the most attended AMAC sessions were popular and determine if anything could be done to build upon their success. Next, I looked into the reasons why the least attended AMEC sessions lacked popularity and deduced whether they could be updated to reach the needs in favor of conference attendees. And then fourth, I had a goal of strengthening the fourth year and beyond track by, strengthening the AMEC experience. And here's just a quick timeline of my events. I made sure to, break down each objective into a certain month so that I would be set for the timeline of my project. So what I actually did was started with the data, and you can see that I started with the AMEC online surveys. Every year, there's post surveys that are sent to conference attendees. So this is kind of what made up the bulk of my project, starting with the survey responses. And you can see that I worked with this Excel sheet of data, and then certain questions were asked to the conference attendees who responded. Here's a quick example. So in terms of the data I worked with about like 200 responses from people and on about 50 AMEC sessions. So here is just like what I started with. Here's just an example of, the types of ways I try to organize my information. I try to organize, this huge Excel sheet of data of survey responses from AMEC attendees. So like making bar graphs was a way to see which sessions were really popular and not so popular. And in this presentation of the format of data, you can really see which sessions were sort of outliers and which were very, very favorable. I also took the time to, organize this data by the certain tracks, like medical student track, pre-medical track, etc. Another thing I did was that I analyzed the data trying to generate quantitative data from the qualitative responses. So on the slide, you can see that we received lots of qualitative responses of things of like, what did you like most about the event? What did you like the least? And what I did was I tried to generate quantitative statistics and numbers from the qualitative responses we got. So for example, I listed 2 statistics out of like the numerous that I was able to record. So for example, 30% of attendees noted networking as their favorite thing about the session they attended, or 19% of attendees mentioned diversity of programming in some way, shape, or form as an area of improvement. So for example, wanting to see more residency program representatives at AMEC, or more diversity of the fourth year and beyond track sessions. And then another thing I did, I wanted to, highlight in terms of things I did was I tried to extract themes from the responses, the qualitative responses we got, and kind of synthesize that information also into a record that I archived. So for example, some that I listed on the slide were sessions that incorporated networking components were more popular, or for many of the sessions, attendees desired more time for Q&A as opposed to presentations, or there was a general desire for higher density of events overall, especially for certain tracks such as fourth year and beyond, pre-medical, etc. And then another thing that I wanted to highlight is that one of the main things we wanted to do with this project was to make sure that all of the information was kind of archived in a place and organized in a place so that, the convention planning committee could go to this folder, go through the sessions and see how organized it was, and have no information kind of accessing this information. Some challenges and obstacles I faced was, the archival of data from past years has been an issue for SNMA. So having trouble finding some of, the past year survey responses. Response rates to surveys have vast room for improvement as well. We have thousands of attendees who come to this conference, but we're seeing response rates in the hundreds. So we want to improve that as well. And then also certain data that would have been pertinent to my project was just simply not available as well. And then we also wanted to make sure that we're focusing on sustainability. So in terms of how this project can be sustained, hopefully the fellowship will continue and a new fellow can analyze and scrutinize, the next AMEC that's coming up, and a pattern can kind of develop where each AMEC is just built on top of the other. And yeah, that's a quick overview of what I was working on as a fellow. I want to acknowledge, the co-directors and the entire NFLP team, my mentor, my product manager, and, the wonderful NFLP fellows that I've been working with the entire year. Thank you. You're muted.
Yep, that was great. Thank you so much for your presentation. And that really captured what the essence of AMEC is, and that's happening next week. So hopefully this project can continue as well, and people can give their feedback and be able to really dive deep into what really makes AMEC great, other than meeting the people, but also the quality of the information that we're receiving. So thank you for that. That was wonderful. You're muted, but you're free to go.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Next up, we have a presentation from Jordan Robinson. I'll bring her onto the screen right now. Thank you, Jordan, for joining us. Super excited for your presentation. You can take it away.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Jordan Robinson, and for my project, I worked with the Academic Affairs National Committee, and our project looked at the impact of SNMA specialty interest groups, or SIGs, on medical student specialty selection. So a brief overview of the project again, we wanted to see if there was a relationship between SIGs and the specialties that students choose to go into after medical school. So brief overview of my presentation. I'll just give a brief bio about myself. I'm going to background about the project, its importance and impact, the timeline, materials and methods, results, discussion, obstacles and challenges, sustainability. We are presenting at AMEC this Friday, so I'll show you guys our poster and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. This is just a little bit about me. I'm originally from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I went to US for undergrad, did post-bac at Drexel, and then went back and did my master's at UF. I'm currently a rising third year at MSU Com, and I've been involved with quite a few things within the SNMA throughout my time in medical school, and also some other things outside of SNMA. And for fun, I like to learn more about wines, fashion, and music. So background of our project. So SIGs are groups within the SNMA that are designed to foster connection between the SNMA and professional medical societies. And we have currently 18 active SIGs with most of the most common specialties represented. I have a visual over here. This is not through the SNMA, but just a general visual about the features different specialties. And then these are some that we have as well. So neurology, plastics and reconstructive surgery, dermatology, just to name a few. And each SIG tailors their programming for each specialty and provides mentorship, different types of events, programming, and more. So what we really wanted to look at is if people continue the same SIG from year to year, if there's a correlation between SIG membership and specialty selection. And we also did a deep dive into looking at competitive specialties to see if SIGs have an impact on if students pursue more competitive specialties, which have more limited representation of students of color. So the importance and impact, so we wanted to know how, we wanted to understand how SIGs can better serve their membership, and again, see if there was a relationship between SIG membership and SNM and medical specialty selection, and also find ways that we can encourage general members to become national members, which if you're not aware, that requires a paid membership fee. So this is a timeline of my project beginning from last August. So again, in August, we kind of did a bird's eye view of the project, kind of see like where we were, what we really wanted to answer. In September, we distributed an initial survey to medical students who were interested in joining any SIG. That survey got 742 responses. In December, we kind of had to go back to the drawing board a little bit because we wanted to, in trying to figure out what questions we wanted answered, we realized we didn't have the data that we needed to answer those questions. So we needed to really look at what we had and figure out how we can utilize what we had to answer the questions that we wanted answered. So in January, we sent out 3 new surveys that I'll touch on a little bit later. And then from January until March, we spent time really analyzing the data from those surveys and then compiling them into our final project. So I'm going to now do a bit of a deep dive into the surveys that we sent out. So again, we sent out 3 surveys to medical students across all 10 regions. And for those who don't know, regions are comprised of all 50 states, as well as select Caribbean countries in which American medical schools are based. And the pool that we sent out the surveys to were, again, from that initial survey sent out in September. So sent them out to, give or take, 742 students. And these are screenshots of these surveys that we sent out, just like the first few questions. So we asked questions such as, again, what SIG are you a member of? How long have you been a member? What are some things that you feel like you've gotten out of the SIG? And so on and so forth. So the results. So from the first survey, we asked students, again, how long they've been a member of each SIG, their satisfaction with SIG events, if membership has increased their interest in a certain specialty, and their overall satisfaction with being a SIG member. So most respondents for this first survey were third-year medical students, although there was a mix of all years. Members of all SIGs responded with the exception of oncology. And over here I have a bar graph just showing the wide range of SIG membership. So we have surgery being the highest here, because there is a mix all across the board. The average length of membership in a SIG is about 1.5 years, which is something that I'm going to touch on a little bit later. Overall benefit of being a SIG member is a 3.9 out of 5. Satisfaction of being a SIG member is a 3.8 out of 5. And then 84% of students said that they would stay in the same SIG the next year. And how we differentiated benefit versus satisfaction was benefit we talked about, like what they're getting out of the SIG. So whether it's networking, mentorship, things like that. And then satisfaction, we focus on, how engaging were the liaisons, how good was the communication, things like that. The main takeaway from this survey was that 64% of students said that SIG membership increased their interest in their current preferred specialty, which was really what we wanted to see, because we wanted to, again, try and tailor SIG events to really serving our students. So it seems like so far the SIGs are doing a pretty good job with that. Our next survey targeted fourth-year medical students. We wanted to see if their current SIG membership correlated with the specialty that they applied for the match, how long they had been a member of that SIG, if SIG membership played a role in their specialty selection, and if they attended the Road to Residency series, and if they found that beneficial. So as some background, the Road to Residency series is an event put on by the Academic Affairs Committee, and it is an event that really talks about like how to be a competitive and successful applicant for the match. So what was good was that we found that all students who applied for the match were members of that respective SIG. So that was really encouraging to see that, again, like students are really joining these SIGs, trying to get as much as they can out of them before applying for residency. Most students were members of their SIGs for 2 years, and you'll see that over here. 2 years is the highest on the bar graph, but they really tend to fall more to the left, so like 2 years or less. So that's something that we really want to try and use as a room for improvement going forward. Like, how can we really get students to join SIGs much earlier on, like in their first year or even as pre-medical students? 72% of students did attend their RTR series, and 68% of students found it successful. So over here, just some keywords that they talked about. So they learned a lot of tips, interacting with faculty, residents, and attendings, and then learning about how programs can cater to, or how you can really stand out as a URM applicant. So that was really good. But what we did find from this survey was that 92% of fourth-year students said that SIG membership did not play a role in their choice of match specialty. Which was it's a pretty high percentage. So again, that's something that we really want to use as a place of improvement. Like, how can we really help students with, with arriving at this big decision earlier on in their medical school career? And lastly, we talked to students in competitive specialty SIGs, and that includes dermatology, neurology, ophthalmology, orthopedic surgery, otolaryngology, plastic and reconstructive surgery, and neurology. We wanted to know if they had an interest in these specialties prior to joining the SIGs, and if membership in those SIGs made them more interested in that specialty. We also asked third years if they were applying in the upcoming cycle, and then what they'd be applying into. So we mostly had second-year medical students respond, although there was a mix all over, and derm and otolaryngology were the top specialty selections for this upcoming 2024 match cycle. So again, we see here, and those are the two most represented specialties of membership over here. And we found that though 95% of students did have an interest before joining the SIG, 59% said that the SIG membership did improve their interest. And that was because of things like, again, we have a word bank over here, like events, interacting with physicians in the field, really feeling their passion, meeting physicians of color in these fields, things like that. So that was really encouraging to see. Again, that kind of representation really can aid in students kind of leaning more toward a specialty when it comes to time for selection. So overall, we found that while SIG membership does play a role in bolstering students' initial interest, there is little data that shows that there is a direct correlation between the two. So benefits such as exposure to residents and physicians and tailored programming are just some of the things that contribute to this interest. But so that really shows that the SNMA should hopefully try and continue to provide those resources, to help kind of further along this contribution. And it also might likely be helpful to have events that are tailored to first-year medical students or even pre-medical students to engage them prior, to their furthering along in their medical school career, where it might take a little bit longer to be exposed to some of these things. So, hearing about it, seeing it earlier on might be helpful when it comes time for selection again. So obstacles and challenges. So again, as I touched on earlier on, when we first tried to answer these questions, we really didn't have a lot of data from previous years, which really would have been a little bit more helpful in trying to see, okay, do these people that are part of these SIGs match into these specialties? So that's something that we kind of got hung up on, especially the fact we didn't really have a lot of contact data from alumni. Sorry, I'm at the end. So let's wrap up really quickly and say that we only had about 25% of students participate in surveys. So going forward, we might try and expand that a little bit further. And this is our poster for AMEC. And that was it. Sorry if I ran over. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. You're totally fine. That was beautiful. We have a question from the audience for you, so I'll put that up for you so you can see.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty interesting. Love says, which SIG has the highest membership and which responded most to your survey?
That's a great question. I'll go ahead and just run back a little bit because surgery was the most that responded to the survey, although, I don't know where I was going. Although, as you can see here, the surveys, they were a really good kind of piece at looking at the membership, but it's a little bit different once you kind of are talking and interacting with the SIGs a little bit more, because we have a lot of engagement from groups like derm and ortho, but just based on the survey, we got the most from general surgery for just overall specialties, and then the most from derm and ENT for competitive specialties.
Great. That's wonderful. And Love, if you're at AMEC, you can hear her present on this some more and dive deeply into the findings of her research at the presentation. So thank you, Jordan. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Brianna Mosley, and she'll be giving us her presentation.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I assume so. So I will be presenting to you today about the Impact Report project under the Programmatic Council of the Future Leadership Project this year. A little bit about me. I'm from Union, New Jersey, and I'm currently pursuing my Doctor of Osteopathic Medicine at Touro Com Harlem. And my project manager this year was the 59th National Vice President. Okay, the goals of this meeting is to discuss the project purpose, the objectives and timelines, my deliverables, and my project experience and future steps. So the project purpose. So the purpose of this project is to highlight the success and effectiveness of the SNMA by displaying specific examples of the SNMA's ability to diversify the face of medicine and also to improve health outcomes. So to quantify this reach, we wanted to do this by looking as far back as 2016 all the way to 2023. We also wanted to use this project as a toolkit to increase awareness of the SNMA and also increase finances and brand memberships. And ultimately, with all of these things, we wanted to increase the membership benefits by providing this report to future sponsors or partnerships. the way that this project was designed. So the goal was to formulate the impact report design, of course, and then to use this as a deliverable to be used for future to further the SNMA mission. My objectives are as follows. First, we started off with identifying parameters at which we would basically decide what was going to be in the project, the final project. This was very hard because the SNMA reaches so wide. So it was very hard to select very pointed items. And I'll talk about this a little bit more later. Then I moved on to data collection, format and design, data analysis, and then survey creation and sustainability, which I'll also discuss. And finally, the culmination will be disseminating this project to the website and to future sponsors and partnerships for the SNMA. So moving on to my deliverables. So the impact report creation, the platform that I used to create this project was Canva. The data range, which I stated earlier, was from 2016 to 2023. And the information source was the committee chairs, the SNMA SharePoint, and the SNMA website. Without further ado, I'm presenting to you the inaugural impact report. So this is our title page. Here we have the infold. So here we have a table of contents. And of course, we have to include the mission of the SNMA, which is committed to supporting the current and future underrepresented minorities, medical students, addressing the needs of underserved communities, and increasing the number of clinically excellent, culturally competent, and socially conscious physicians. Then I went on to our next page, which is from 2016 to now. I wanted to highlight big ticket items and big numerical, qualitative and quantitative items about what the SNMA has done over these past couple of years. So for example, we've maintained 10 regions, over 180 chapters, 250 MAPS chapters. We've held 7 annual medical education conferences, 2 virtuals, of course, because of the COVID pandemic, 19 specialty interest groups, 826 research presentations, and the numbers go on and on. So the reach of the SNMA is so wide, and we really wanted to highlight all of these big things so that people understand that we're not just doing what we're doing at the chapter level, but also nationally, we are making an impact on the health of the nation. Then we have a letter to talk about from the president and the vice president, just talking about their involvement in the project. Moving on to our work. So I wanted to highlight the different areas that the SNMA focuses on. First off, service. So for service, we have our monthly initiatives I talked about from August to April. Each month has a different theme. I've also included different images of us doing the service in our various communities, whether it's health fairs, whether it's breast cancer awareness, whether it's food pantries. Another big highlight from the service section is our AstraZeneca grant that we received in 2022, helping us get money to further our service efforts. Then we have education, which is a huge tenet for the SNMA, because the S in SNMA does stand for student. So we wanted to highlight here the membership benefits, the president's newsletters, mentoring, Road to Residency series, NMA partnerships, and also the Tour for Diversity. Moving on to health policy and advocacy. So obviously this time period is during the COVID pandemic. So I wanted to highlight our campaign for COVID vaccines. In addition to during this time is when the George Floyd killing happened. So there was a lot of advocacy work that we did along with White Coats for Black Lives, in addition to the Vote ER mentorship and Met Out the Vote. And then we recently went to the National Advocacy Forum to advocate for topics, whether it's maternal health, education, medical practice policy, and more. And then also in the recent years, we have published 32 policy statements since 2016. Moving on to leadership. Of course, I had to highlight the Future Leadership Project, from which I'm a product of, and also talk a little bit about the structure of SNMA's leadership, including the board of directors and who is included in that. In the research section, I wanted to highlight how big our research is in terms of giving students the ability to publish research and also to submit posters. Just this year, we went from 370 submissions, and we accepted 200 students to submit their research for this year's AMEC. Then I wanted to highlight the committees that weren't highlighted anywhere else in those 4 tenets that I just discussed. So the Osteopathic Schools Committee, we're currently serving 561 osteopathic medical students, and that's just in this programmatic year. I also want to highlight major brand partnerships and medical exam partnerships that we have through the Osteopathic Schools Committee and some of their select projects. Finally, I have MAPS here, and MAPS deserves 4 pages in itself because it reaches so wide, targeting pre-medical students from the high school level to the undergraduate level and also the post-bac level. I want to highlight here that we give out blueprint scholarships, we give MCAT prep, and there's mentoring resources for students because at the end of the day, we do want to increase the number of underserved minorities, underrepresented minorities in medicine. And then the International Affairs Committee. Here, I wanted to highlight trips that we've had. It was a little bit hard to find the trips that we've gone on in these recent 7 years. Haiti 2015 and Jamaica 2022, and this is actually a picture from Haiti in 2015. But here I wanted to also highlight that the International Affairs Committee is not just focusing on going on medical outreach trips, but they also focus on making sure the needs of our international medical graduates are met as well in the Caribbean medical schools. And we also have the Global Health Fellowship that targets increasing the understanding of health systems internationally and also medical Spanish. Finally, we have the Join Us page where I give links to following our latest news, joining us, supporting us, of course, our social media handles and ways for future sponsorships and ways for organizations to submit any marketing or communication inquiries. And the collaborators of this project, we have the National Vice President, the National President, and then a number of various committee members and chairs. My experience doing this project has been really great. My big takeaways, large project management. Obviously, I had to work with all 14 committees. I gained a lot of perspective, not just at the chapter level that I received as chapter president, but also just learning about what the SNMA does as a whole. Some challenges we're selecting because there's so much to select from. Committee correspondence, we are students at the end of the day, so it's hard to balance giving me this information with tests and board exams and rotations, and also data collection because the data currently is slightly unorganized. So to be able to find a way to make sure that the data is more centralized would help this project moving forward. My sustainability plan is to create a blank template for future impact reports, provide parameters to each committee to compile throughout the year so it's more streamlined. And then also my recommendations are to continue this project with another FLP fellow or a team of fellows because this was a large undertaking for one student. And also I want to increase the responsibility for the national committees. I want this to be something that they have to do each year, whether it's a survey, whether it's a folder for them to compile this information in. But I do really think it's important to have this continually being formulated so that our sponsors are knowing what we're doing and where their money is going. Finally, I want to thank the FLP team. I want to thank my project manager, the national vice president, and the national president, and all of the national committee chairs who helped me with receiving all of this information. Thank you all.
That was wonderful, Brianna. Thank you so much. I remember when that project was just a thought in Nita's imagination, like we should have this. And to see the work you've put in to get it this far is just commendable. Thank you so much for all of that. And I just want to say future, if I'm not saying it too soon, future regional director, this is wonderful. This is a project that you need to be able to manage so many different moving parts and so many different people with grace and leadership. So I'm excited for your future and thank you so much for that presentation.
Thank you.
Next, we have two people giving their presentation on a strategy team project on data impact. I'm going to welcome Faris and Elishima. Yep, perfect. Go ahead and take off, you put on your camera, and we should get started. You are not on mute, but we can't hear you. Faris, can we hear from you? Make sure that's working.
You guys hear me? Sorry.
We can hear you, Faris. Elishima, can you try one more time? Let me just make sure that's working as well.
Hey, Amara, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes. Alicia, maybe cannot. If you do have headphones, that might be helpful. Bear with us as we just figure this out. But in the meantime, I would use this time to just talk a little bit more about what the FLP does and like how you can get involved. So typically we have the FLP fellows give their final presentation a couple weeks before AMEC. AMEC is our annual medical education conference, and that's happening next weekend. So if you still want to go, there's still opportunity to buy tickets. Next weekend in Hartford, Connecticut, that's where we'll be having it. And that's the opportunity for us to really celebrate our fellows and what they've been able to accomplish thus far. And so we present them with their certificates. We get to see each other for the first time. And then from there, we go on and just allow other students who are interested in FLP to give this opportunity to talk with our current fellows and also past fellows, which presumably and what we see are the future leaders of the SNMA. And so after AMEC, we open up the applications to be able to apply to be a FLP. And quite frankly, it is a little bit competitive because it's a wonderful opportunity for you to be able to build up your leadership skills in the setting of a controlled environment within the SNMA, and also with the idea of looking towards the future and how you can actually apply those leadership skills to the work that you do within the SNMA and beyond. So we do have the application open for approximately a month, and afterwards you get the invitation to join FLP, and you have a 1-month trial period where you get to see how it is. What does it mean to be an FLP and be a student? How do I manage my time in such a way that I'll be able to excel on both fronts? And so from there, you decide to either stay into the program or allow somebody else to be in the program. If you stay in the program, you have a mixture of webinars, a mixture of small team projects, and larger team or larger individual leadership projects, which is what you're witnessing today, the final presentations. So I do see Alicia joined in again. Let me see if I can add her to the stream and see if her volume and
Can you hear me now?
Yep, that's beautiful. When you logged off, you took off your slides. So if you don't mind uploading those slides, and then we can get started with your presentation. And so throughout the year, we bring in leaders within the SNMA for the fellows to learn from and to just pick their brain on how to go about figuring out a leadership challenge or how to solve those solutions. I do see your slides, Alicia, so let me add that to the screen and you guys can take it away. Super excited to see what you guys have to present.
Thank you, Amara. Okay, so we are Strategy Team 2, and our project is on data impact. The presentation includes the following. Our team is composed of 2 fellows. I am Alishma Petion, a second-year medical student at Howard University College of Medicine.
And hello, everyone. My name is Fadis Sadiq, and I'm a research fellow at the National Institute of Health.
And our project was under the guidance of our principal investigators, Dr. Jessica Fowler and Dr. Love Anani. To begin, it's important to understand the problem that led us to our project. And to summarize, SNMA has a rich reservoir of data, but SNMA has not yet wielded its full potential in what it has. And we know that the data can provide real-time information about SNMA's storage, inform what it does and why. And so our project was tasked to answer the following 3 questions, which are: 1, how can SNMA take the next step of harnessing the data that it has? 2, how might we interpret data to produce a desired end result? And 3, is SNMA looking at the correct metrics to achieve targeted impact? To answer these questions, we delved in and did background research, and we found 3 main concerns. The first one is the lack of uniformity in data collection, and that there are several systems being utilized to collect data. We believe that creating a survey, the same survey, across all SNMA programmings will help SNMA harness the data. Secondly, we found that there was a lack of data usage, and that the data that we did find was not being analyzed or used to produce a desired end result, which is to summarize SNMA's impact on its members. And we believe that utilizing the data collected from the survey to create impact reports will better showcase SNMA's impact on members and also will help us receive feedback on ways to improve. And lastly, we found that there was a data impact deficiency in that there is a lack of data, relevant data that we were looking for, especially on members' experience, and impact reports that were also specific to SMA programming and, again, membership experience. So designing a survey with questions will help collect data we observe SMA is currently lacking to best demonstrate its impact. We then looked into what other organizations were doing regarding their data impact, and we found that organizations such as AMSA, NSBE, and other non-governmental organizations have on their website data impact reports and visual representation as shown on the screen. And these infographics contain information such as statistics regarding member demographics, scholarship funding, and as well as participation within the organization. So the objective of our project is to create a method of centralizing SNMA's data impact to reveal valuable insight, including the people SMA serves, membership experience, and the most successful initiatives. Our goal is to design a survey that collects quality data to best reflect SNMA's impact, especially on its members. And our short-term goal is to distribute the survey to SMA members to collect data on their experience. And our long-term vision is to create a more targeted survey for the various committees within SNMA to evaluate SNMA's impact on a more micro level. And we believe with all of this will equip SNMA for success to harnessing quality data that can reflect SNMA's impact. The design of our survey is through Qualtrics survey system. And within that, we'll develop more member-specific questions. And then we'll translate the survey results into graphics to be displayed on SMA webpage, as Brianna discussed, in the form of a data impact report. Our targeted audience will be national committee members, SMA members nationwide, as well as third-party SMA partnerships. And this is important because it will enhance SNMA's data collection, centralize the location to collecting this SMA data, as well as provide evidence of SNMA's impact to third-party partners. The theme of our survey will be membership experience. And again, it is a quantitative/qualitative online survey through Qualtrics, and it will take less than 5 minutes to complete as we have tested it. And it will include 15 multiple choice questions and 1 optional free text. We will also provide a survey incentive in which participants will have the opportunity to submit their email to be entered into a raffle to win SMA perks, which we'll detail later.
All right, so for our survey question breakdown, we broke it down into 2 categories. The first is demographics, and the second is measurable outcomes. So for our demographics, we have membership duration and start of involvement with SNMA, age, gender, sex, race, ethnicity, and which SNMA region the members are located in, as well as their level of education and training. And for the measurable outcomes, we wanted to assess the SNMA's impact on membership support throughout their journey in medicine, the attendance rate to specific SNMA programming initiatives, and lastly, the top 2 most impactful SNMA programs. So this is a capture of what our survey looks like on Qualtrics, and that is a small picture of how it would look like on your phone when you go to take it. And our first measurable outcome that we want to assess is we asked the question, please respond to the following statement. SNMA has assisted me with blank in my journey to medicine. Fill in the blank with the following options. So we have things from scholarship grants, social support, test prep, interview skills, research opportunities, mentorship, etc. are the things that we hope to see our members give us feedback on, and if they have been supported with these different opportunities and resources, or if there are some things that have not been doing so well, and those are gaps that we can hope to improve in the future. And for the second initiative, measurable outcome, we want to look at which events people actually attended in. So whether it's AMEC, RMEC, different national committee events. And this will also provide the SNMA leadership with very valuable data on what events have received the most engagement, and which events maybe have not had as much attendance, and figure out ways on how we can improve increasing attendance in those events. And lastly, we wanted to look at which 2 events are most impactful for the SNMA members. And here we have the list of different events that SNMA provides. And this is also another way that we hope to assess what events are doing better than others and which areas could receive some more improvement. And lastly, we have an optional testimonial that describes the impact SNMA has had on your journey through medicine. And this is a free response question for members to just, address anything that wasn't addressed in the questions prior to this, and just kind of give us a more free response, open-ended question for feedback. And lastly, we have this optional incentive email address to fill out. And this is what we believe will increase our response rate to the survey. As we saw in some of the previous presentations today, there is an issue sometimes with trying to get a robust response rate. So we believe having this proposal of 3 different incentives will increase this response rate. And those are a funded trip to AMEC, which is happening next week, a UWorld question bank for MCAT or USMLE, and a $500 gift card or a $500 gift card. And the reason why is we wanted to diversify the different incentives to target a wider range of audience, because some people may have already taken their MCAT or USMLE exams, for example. And if that was the only incentive, then they may not be incentivized to take this survey. So that's where a $500 gift card, for example, would be another incentive for them. And this right here is a capture of a live Qualtrics report data analysis. So after people will fill out their survey, we will get a real-time data analysis from Qualtrics that shows the different response rates, for example, for the yes or no questions. And this just provides us with immediate, understanding of what events and what resources have been helpful and what other resources have not. And for our sustainability plan proposal, post FLP, we hope to distribute the survey and publish it to the SNMA webpage and have it available all year long. And we also hope that the membership committee will be the primary party responsible for survey maintenance and also responsible for making any amendments as appropriate in the future. And lastly, we hope that they also oversee rewarding incentives for people who fill out the survey. And as far as data collection, we hope the membership committee will export data from the Qualtrics to upload to the SNMA SharePoint. And also, this gives us ample time to collect meaningful data that can be used to improve the following year. So we hope that this survey will be looked at by the end of the academic year, which is after AMEC, and that way we would get like a valuable feedback response rate on all the different events that occurred from the fall until the end of the winter. And finally, for the data impact report, we hope to incorporate this into the next SNMA FLP fellow project year and assign a fellow to collect this data from Qualtrics to SharePoint, and then export that data into an infographic. And of course, creativity is welcomed. Here is a future survey proposal that we have regarding SNMA. As we mentioned, SNMA right now doesn't have a centralized data system or area where there's data that's collected on the feedback on SNMA's programs, and just evaluating how beneficial SNMA is. We know they have great programs, great initiatives, but we never receive feedback on membership and how this is improving membership success. So right now, the survey that we created is a pretty broad survey that just targets the different events, but it doesn't actually look at each event individually. So this is a proposal for a more micro level, analysis of different events. For example, the National Mass Postbac Initiative, which is for people who are between their pre-med and med school years, or the Sewing Seed Specialty Series, for example, the neurology or ophthalmology or different specialty series that occur with SNMA. We hope to provide a survey like this in the future that actually looks at the different events and how beneficial they are and where are the gaps in those events, so that we can, after we look at and see which events are, for example, having the most engagement and which ones are not, we can have a deeper dive into why those reasons are what they are, for example. And this is our SWOT analysis, which is the strength, weakness, opportunities, and threat analysis. So for our strengths, we believe this project will centralize all data collection for SNMA, and it's also going to obtain valuable SNMA data on membership experience, as well as provide incentives to increase survey participation. However, some of the weaknesses, as mentioned, is that this is not specific to a specific committee or SNMA programming. and also the potential cost in using Qualtrics to full capacity. And the opportunities that arise from this project is that it's going to increase SNMA partnership with organizations, engage with other stakeholders, hopefully increase membership retention, and also when recruiting prospective SNMA members, they will be able to see all this data that's provided on the SNMA webpage and how impactful SNMA can be in their journey in medicine. And the threat is that we may be unable to achieve a robust survey response due to the possibility of it being considered too long. But we believe the survey can be completed in less than 5 minutes as we tested it. So hopefully it won't be perceived that way. And thank you guys all for listening in. And a special thank you to Dr. Anani and Dr. Fowler for their great advice and support throughout the year. The SNMA NFLP leadership team, the consultants, SNMA president and vice president, and the national committee chairs. And here's our contact email if you guys have any more questions regarding our project. And thank you all for listening.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Definitely enjoyed it. And I remember when creating the impetus for this project was just an idea, and just seeing how it came through to fruition in your own unique ways, quite fascinating. And from the audience, Dr. Levanani says, great job. Can't wait to get this in folks' hands. And then Nia also said, great work, Team 2. Proud of your hard work on this impactful project this year. Excited to see the launch of this survey. So we are definitely excited. We could not be more proud of what you're able to come up with. And we can just see this really impacting the future of the SNMA. So definitely thank you so much for your hard work.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Goodbye. Next, we have added to the stream Christina Thompson, and she'll be giving her project presentation. I'll let you take it away. Christina, you are mute. And then,
can you hear me?
Perfect.
Awesome. Good afternoon. My name is Christina Thompson. I'm a current second year at St. George's University. And this year, my project was on the sustainability of the AMEC volunteer event. Okay, so looking at the agenda, I will first go over the background and importance of this project, and then go into the objectives, the timeline, and then looking more into this year's AMEC community service events, the deliverables, and how I plan on making this project sustainable, as well as the next steps. Okay, so for starters, I wanted to start by highlighting the mission of SNMA. So while I won't read the entire thing, I did want to focus on what was underlined, which was addressing the needs of the underserved communities. I feel that this portion of the mission statement is where my project aligns within SNMA. Okay, so now looking at the background and the importance. So like I said, my project's on the AMEC volunteer event. And if you guys don't know, every year at AMEC, the SNMA hosts a volunteer event for the attendees that makes a tangible difference in the lives of those served by a local organization in need. Through this event, SNMA members can give back to the community while also fostering a sense of camaraderie and shared purpose among convention attendees. The purpose of this project specifically is to establish a sustainable program that empowers SNMA regions to continue serving their communities long after the conclusion of the convention. Our hope is that by building on the momentum generated by the volunteer event at AMEC, that SNMA members locally can develop ongoing partnerships with these organizations and create a lasting impact on the communities that they will be serving. Also, with the vision of this project, ideally, we would love to have committee collaboration. So specifically, the committees involved is the Convention Planning Committee's Community Engagement, and the National Community Service Committee. So what these two committees do, the Community Engagement Committee works diligently every year to organize a community service event at AMEC that aligns with the national president's vision for community engagement. And the National Community Service Committee is responsible for executing national protocols through a series of monthly initiatives that are designed to direct their service efforts. Our hope or our vision with this project is to align both of these missions to help create every year a purposeful, meaningful, impactful community service event at AMEC. And I just wanted to highlight specifically the April initiative within SNMA, which is Healthy People Health Fairs. So specifically, more objectives of my project was to create a plan to ensure that future AMECs prioritize the addressing needs of the local underserved communities surrounding AMEC, to help develop best practices in engaging the community and sustainable pipelines with the organization for future engagement, and finally, creating opportunities for new partnerships to be continued by the local SNMA chapter and the region. So looking more into my project and this year's AMEC community service events. Starting off with the timeline of my project. So started back in August with the introduction. September to October was more focused on establishing these objectives as well as coming up with the deliverables. November to December was data collection and further going into the deliverables. And then from January to March was the completion of my proposal. And the next steps will happen at the culmination of NFLP and at AMEC. So this year's AMEC Community Service events, there will be 3. First, there is an open hearth care packages, which is an all-men's shelter. There's encouragement cards for Chrysalis, and then there will be a community health fair. With my project, myself and my project manager, Whitney, decided that the best event to start implementing this program with will be the open hearth package, the open hearth packages. So for those who don't know, Open Hearth is a men's homeless shelter that offers food, shelter, and various opportunities to regain their lives. And at AMEC, there will be a 2-day volunteer event where attendees will help build hygiene packages and then distribute them to the community the next day. And the goal is to pack at least 140 packages. And why we chose this event, it is a more intimate setting, so it is easier to manage with this being a newly implemented program, and it will be easier to establish a deeper connection with the organization and establish clear goals. And ultimately, our hope is to establish a strong partnerships and sustainable partnership with Open Hearth that will benefit both the organization, our organization, and theirs. And by working closely with them, we can identify areas where we can make a meaningful difference and create a plan to achieve shared goals. So in regards to my deliverables, the major thing was coming up with a way to transition this event from the hands of the AMEC planning committee down to the local hands within that region. And ideally, we were hoping to establish rapport with community leaders, having a timeline of events to help SNMA remain involved after AMEC, as well as have parameters around expectations for these community leaders. And the overall arching goal is to establish at least one activity of community service with this site every year. And we discussed and found that the hands that really should be involved here are the liaisons of the community service committee, the regional board, and the local SNMA chapter. And ideally, this person or these persons would be active in planning the current year's AMEC to provide knowledge to the committee. Within the national committee sector, there will be check-ins where the regional liaison will give a report to give updates. And at the regional level, there will be the local chapters giving their reports. And this will all be streamlined to be maintained by a number of committees. So to kind of give more of a visual of what I mentioned, here were the respective parties that ideally would be involved and what their involvement will be. So there will be somebody at every level to assist with organizing this event. as well as assisting with the transition and the execution and following up of this project. I also created a few documents to be handed to the necessary parties. So I have a brief infographic on the left that will have more information about that specific event, who to contact, as well as what the expectations are. And on the right, there is a bit more information, and this will be handed to the respective liaison at each level. It will have more information about what their specific roles will be. In regards to sustainability, there are 3 portions where we are focusing. So we have the committee integration, which I described, the toolkit, which is the protocol documents that I have created, as well as the monitoring of the follow-up, as well as being open to receiving feedback and ways to improve at every step. So what happens next? So next, we have continued collaboration with the committees that I mentioned, sharing these documents, getting their feedback, review, and seeing how we can implement it in their current practices. And then following AMEC next week, working on scheduling more meetings with the organization and the parties to further discuss the implementation of this plan, and moving forward, actively working on integrating the projects within the committees to ensure its success. Okay, so I just wanted to give a very special shout out to Whitney Nichols, who was the CPC co-chair and who was my project manager. She really took a lot of time out to help me out with this project, and I am very grateful. And thank you for your time.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Christina. I think the volunteer portion, as you mentioned, is like very underrated, but so important for what the SNMA stands for and what we do. And our ability to be able to do this volunteer at all the sites, wherever we have AMEC, I think is commendable. So just seeing what you're doing with that and how to transition that and how to make it a little bit more robust is very inspiring. Thank you so much. And I can't wait to see you at AMEC next weekend. Thank you very much. Our next presentation is Bazat, and she'll be presenting on her leadership project that she's been working on for this entire year. So welcome.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Bazat Ibrahim, and my project focused on the Alumni Leadership Fellow Program under the Alumni Affairs Committee. So this is just going to be the agenda for my presentation. We're going to go through the background, importance of the project, objectives, timeline, deliverables that I have, obstacles and challenges that I face, and the sustainability of the project. So I just wanted to put the mission of the SNMA up here because I believe it's so essential for us to recognize our mission, and it was so essential to the creation of this project. I'm not going to read all of it, but I do want to highlight the bolded area of the mission, which says increasing the number of clinically excellent, culturally competent, and socially conscious physicians, which I believe is the core of the development of this project. So the background. So we notice as Alumni Affairs, we have so many great SNMA leaders that have, gone on to residency, and we've been able to provide them with support as in leadership while they were during their SNMA time. But they do eventually take up leadership roles with other institutions and beyond. And even with the support that we provided them, with the leadership experience that we gave them while they were a part of the SNMA, they do need more support to navigate leadership within residency. So with that, as a fellow, my tasks were to design and execute key components of the Alumni Leadership Program, and to also extract key insights into other leadership programs to enhance our overall leadership program. So the overall purpose and the outcome of this project is to equip past SNMA leaders with the tools and support that they need to navigate leadership during residency so they can become physician leaders. So why is the leadership program so important? So like I mentioned previously with the bolded part of the mission statement, the one aspect of the mission is to increase the number of clinically excellent, culturally competent, and socially conscious physicians. So the overall goal of the program is to plan to help past SNMA leaders navigate leadership within residency by providing them with tools that they need in order to be successful and to develop as mentors and future leaders for others. Additionally, we hope to help past SNMA leaders understand the hidden curriculum that lies within medicine, that lies within leadership advancement, even more so within medicine, so that we can be able to produce more physicians who are leaders through mentorship, through research, and within their own faculty within the future. So these are the objectives of my project. So I split them up into 5 parts. So the first objective is the exploration phase. So it focused on researching leadership programs hosted by various institutions and organizations. I also determined the benefits and drawbacks of determining an ideal fellowship structure for physicians. The second objective is the conceptualization phase, which basically ensues of brainstorming the design and execution of this project. So focusing on the goals, the themes, the objectives of the program, and the timeline of the program. My third objective was the validation phase. So communicating my design ideas with selected people within the SNMA and people who also had prior leadership fellow program training and also participated in a leadership program, and use that feedback that I received from them to make any necessary changes or improvements to the program. The fourth objective was the implementation phase. So reach out to any individuals who would be interested in participating in the program through the use of surveys, utilizing social media or other conferences that we may hold, like AMEC, for example. And then lastly, the finalization phase is we review and we tentatively finalize the design, the execution, and the curricular components of the program with Alumni Affairs. So it's expected that this project will go past the NFLP year with hopes to launch the program within the next year or so. So this is just an overall timeline of my project. Like I previously mentioned, I split my project up into phases so it can help with the progression and the organization of my project. So exploration phase, this keyword was research. It took from between September and October. Conceptualization phase between October and December. Validation phase was December to January. The implementation phase, January to February, and the design phase was between February, and as an asterisk there for the results of that, because it is expected to go past the NFLP year, and then we come to our call to action today to present it. So these are just my deliverables. Most of my project was heavily based in researching a lot of articles that discuss physician leadership programs, going through other more notable, famous leadership programs like through Stanford, and understanding how other professionals utilize leadership programs within their own faculty. How do pre-law students, law students, dental, engineering, how do they approach leadership programs within their own professional careers? In addition, here are some other articles and some notes that I've been taking throughout my project, as well as an example draft survey for the alumni leadership interest. So obstacles and challenges that I faced during my project was the timing, realizing that some phases are kind of a long standing, that it will take time. Example, the exploration phase, I'm always going to be researching, always going to be finding new information that I didn't know before that I will be able to implement in my project. So understanding and realizing that some phases will take more time than expected. Capturing the data. So with all the data that I was able to accumulate through articles, discussions with other leaders who develop programs, it was difficult to kind of navigate the most efficient way to record all this data and new findings. And then lastly, being able to create a program that is enriching and comprehensive, yet mindful of the rigors of residency as a whole. So lastly, the overall sustainability and the hope for the future for this project is to continue the Alumni Leadership Fellow program with the current fellow, or to be able, if I'm no longer able to do so, to participate. Do detailed reports, reviews, and timelines will be given to Alumni Affairs so they can give it to the future fellow so that we can keep this project ongoing. Each year we'll have improvements and adjustments so that we can overall launch this program successfully. And that's it. I'd like to thank Amara, who is my project manager, who helped me with the initiation of this project, Demetria Walker, who's the national teams coordinator, and the entire FLP team.
You are most welcome. The work you put into this and just seeing you go through this was absolutely amazing. This is something that I don't think people really realize how important it is to have a helper transition be going from medical school into residency, because it can be at a time in life like fraught with like, oh, what should I do? What should I be doing? And so just having that home base to come back and be like, you know what, these are the leadership principles I'm going to hold on to and move forward is amazing. So I'm super excited to see where this project goes. I think it's absolutely necessary. And thank you for all of your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up we have Katucha, and she'll be giving her presentation. I'll add you to the screen right now. Hello, Katucha.
Hello. I'm very grateful to be here today and to share what I've been working on with my project. So I'm really hoping that everyone will get a chance to see what we've been working with at the International Affairs Committee. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. So hello, everyone. My name is Katusha Morand. I am a graduate of the University of Florida and currently a certified health education specialist. So, to give some of my background and what my interest in international affairs lies, so I am a Haitian American, and I felt that it was very important to have a global perspective in medicine and to understand what opportunities are out there to engage in global medicine, and also having that context when working with diverse populations within the United States. So for today's agenda, we'll be covering four main sections. I'm giving a little bit of background about the Global Health Newsletter, which is what my focus was for this past year. Taking a look at the goal, objectives, and the impact that the newsletter will have. Understanding the timeline and progress that was made throughout the year. And then reflecting on some of the challenges and looking forward to what we expect the Global Health Newsletter to look like in the future. To provide some background, the Global Health Newsletter is a relatively new initiative. It started in the fall of 2021, specifically in October of last year, and it's released on a quarterly basis, meaning every 3 months. The goal task of the newsletter is that the International Affairs Committee really wanted to expand this newsletter and for it to be a source for SNMA members to really have for global health news, education, engagement opportunities, service or mission trip opportunities, and for it to be a resource for people to look to. The ultimate goal is to provide SNMA members with a robust, visually appealing, and knowledgeable form of communication and resources for staying up to date with global health news and opportunities for global health engagement and education. So to provide a little bit of context of what that means and what is being said here, we want people in SNMA, whether it be pre-medical students, whether it be current practicing physicians, medical students, to have a place or source where they can contact or look to as a resource for global health news, for opportunities to engage with global communities and other sources of information so that they're able to really expand their reach and the kind of background that they'll be able to have in their professional and academic careers. So these were the following objectives I had going into this project. We really wanted to create a robust survey so that we could get some feedback about how the newsletter has been used in the past and what are some of the expectations or things that people would like to see in the Global Health Newsletter. We wanted to analyze this data and see how we can apply it to making developments for improvement. And then we wanted to really make sure to expand the content of the newsletter so it had a diversification of topics, of different ways people can engage in global health, and then ultimately make sure that we're reaching all aspects and parts of the SNMA body with the newsletter. So why is this important? It's very easy for many people to just glance at newsletters when they come into their emails, and it's very easy to get overwhelmed with newsletters. But the goal that we're really aiming here is that we really wanted to provide a source or a resource that could really empower domestic and international medical students, and as well as an extension, physicians, to expand SMA's reach in a global context. So we really want to highlight the importance of global health and working with these different communities. And as part of that, this ultimately supports SNMA's mission to support underrepresented minorities, address underserved communities, and build culturally competent physicians. Working in the context of global health, you're often working with, if it's within the US, we're looking at many underrepresented minorities. We're looking at immigrant health. We're looking at many people who may be refugees, or even if it's generations of people who've immigrated here, they have unique health needs and health disparities that impact their health. And these are often either domestically or internationally underserved communities. So by engaging with the newsletter, it provides people the means to become more culturally competent as methods of ways to engage with these communities, to learn more about these communities, and specifically in a way to ethically engage with global communities. So while during this project, our timeline did vary quite some bit, and that's just with the course of receiving more information, tailoring our needs, figuring out what we really wanted to focus on with the newsletter. So here I have displayed what ended up being our ultimate timeline and progress of the newsletter. We had our initial meeting and discussed ideas. We met on a monthly basis, talking about the different ways that we wanted to expand the newsletter and what improvements they wanted to be seen. Within the newsletter, I ultimately came to the conclusion of making this survey, which I will talk about a little bit more in the presentation, and creating an action plan that will, in long term, be used as a toolkit in order to continuously improve the newsletter. What I did want to touch on is what our current newsletter looks like and what newsletter we were able to produce in the fall. So in the fall, we produced one of our quarterly newsletters, and we were able to talk about a variety of very different topics. And this is important because we really want to highlight with people the different things that global health covers. Many people, when they think of global health, they often think of tropical diseases, such as malaria, and they think of other contributing factors like lack of access to hygiene. And all these things do contribute to global health, but there's also global health in the context of other topics, such as food marketing, which affects childhood obesity rates, and in the long term, the health implications of that. We took a look at maternity and different forms of approaching maternity care in different countries, and the development of things such as kangaroo care, which helps supports communities that don't necessarily have enough incubators for all the babies who are born prematurely. So there's really a huge breadth of topics that are covered in the newsletter, and we really wanted to highlight that there really is something for everyone and interests all across the board. Within the global newsletter survey that was developed, I developed both quantitative and qualitative parts of the survey so that we can gather really robust data. The first part of the survey includes a 5-point Likert scale that includes 3 questions for each one of these factor categories. We're looking at knowledge, use, and relevance. So knowledge refers to what people currently know about the newsletter, where they've heard of it, how much they know of what content it includes, so that we can really gather if people understand what a newsletter is and what it hopes to do. With use, we're looking at just that, how often people use the newsletter, in what ways do they use the newsletter, what do they look for it to? They look for it for global health news, they use it for opportunities for internships or volunteering, or then we looked at relevance, which included how relevant people felt that the newsletter was to their professional careers, their academic careers, and even personal goals that they had for themselves. And this really helps us put into perspective the different ways that the newsletter could be used and whether or not if we can find ways to improve some of these things. We also really wanted to make sure that we included a demographics component of the newsletter so that we could take a look at who's using the newsletter and who it's benefiting. And this is especially important because one of our SNMA regions, Region 4, does include students from the Caribbean. So we do have international students where the newsletter may be especially essential for their development and careers. So the newsletter action plan to make change in the future includes 3 main components: improving the design, improving engagement, and improving marketing. With the design, we really want to take a look at the physical elements as well as the content within the newsletter to make improvements. We want to take a look at engagement and really trying to engage more SNMA members and using different marketing techniques so people know what the newsletter is and so that we have greater reach with the newsletter. Within this action plan, taking a closer look at the details, I mentioned previously the visual elements and expanding the kind of content, which means internship opportunities, visiting rotations, and things such as that. Within engagement, we really want to bridge the newsletter with the Global Health Fellows. I was also fortunate to be a Global Health Fellow this year. And with that, I really think the fellows can play a great role in sharing their experiences and giving some of their background and contributing to the newsletter. We want to create a platform for people who are interested in global health to engage with the newsletter and have discussion topics where they can talk about ethical service trips or talk about certain topics such as improving maternal mortality rates in sub-Saharan Africa or other similar detailed topics. With marketing, we really want to increase our social media engagement within SNMA's different platforms such as Twitter and Instagram. And then we also want to connect with regional leadership so that people could really show connect people at the regional level so that people don't really feel distance from the newsletter and what they can contribute to the newsletter. We also think that connecting with global health focused organizations could really help expand SNMA's reach and also have that bridge between people who may be involved with other organizations, such as medical brigades or other organizations that partake in global health and service trips or mission trips. So as mentioned, there were some challenges along the way. We have very few little data available about how the newsletter was previously used in terms of numbers, engagement, clicks, and reads. We did use a platform of Medium, which some people may not be familiar with, and it may help if other people were familiar with a different topic. And as mentioned before, the delayed timeline. What we expect to be some challenges are survey responsiveness, engagement, and effective marketing. That said, I think that we can have a sustainable way of moving this forward, like connecting the global health fellows, having this action plan as a toolkit, and creating spaces for discussion for continuous engagement. So with that, I come to the end of my presentation. I just want to have a few acknowledgments. I really want to acknowledge my project manager, Jaleese Taylor, who was instrumental to helping me with this project. And I want to thank the FLP team for really helping guide us through this process, which would not have been possible without their help throughout this year. Thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, please be sure to contact me.
That was great. Thank you so much for your presentation. I think it really spoke to what one of the core essence of the SNMA is having a newsletter that's sent out weekly to the members of the SNMA. That is what makes the resources, the richness and resources and access to things, and just realizing that we do need that on an international level for our international medical students, and also for people who are not international to be in the know of what's happening outside of our daily bubble. I think this is essentially what we need. So kudos to you for this project, and I can't wait to see this in motion. Okay, next we have Erin, and she'll be giving her presentation. Hi, Erin, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming. No. Okay, there we go. All right. Hello, everyone. As Amara said, my name is Erin Iguachu, and this year I had the pleasure of serving as the Osteopathic Committee's National Fellow, and I'm going to tell you all a little bit about what my project focused on. So first, I just like to put a face with names, and these are some of the ladies that are running the National Osteopathic Committee, and they all work together to help me get this done. So thank you to them. This is a little bit about me. My name is Erin Iguachi, like I said, and I am a second-year osteopathic student at Kansas City University. I also serve as the Region 2 Osteopathic Liaison. So osteopathic medicine and the bringing awareness to it is very near and dear to my heart. So a lot of us have heard a lot about the mission statements of SNMA, but I think it's really important to wrap that in to the project because that's why we're doing what we're doing, right? And I'm particularly focusing on the aspect of being committed to supporting the current and future underrepresented minority medical students, and in this case, specifically aspiring osteopathic medical students. And how do we do this? So we can either go about it by leadership, mentorship, and all of those things. But my project focused more so on supporting and aspiring the future leaders and the future osteopathic students, and in particular, the underrepresented students. The project backgrounds that I had were to connect with the osteopathic alumni, meaning those that were in SNMA and are now serving as osteopathic physicians. Also, to connect those osteopathic physicians who want to serve as mentors with SNMA students, whether medical students or pre med students, to give that mentorship. And in doing this, to also create an osteopathic database. This is very important because, as we will see shortly next week at AMEC, this is where all physicians and pre-med and medical students come together, and having that database of osteopathic physicians allows us to call on them more to participate in these future events. So before I keep going on and on about this osteopathic mentorship program, for those of you who may not know what an osteopathic physician is, I just wanted to put a quick little blurb for those who are not too quite sure. Osteopathic physician is one who has a doctor of osteopathic medicine, and the MD that people know are those of doctor of allopathic medicine. The similarities in the middle are things that most people know, but the differences are osteopathic physicians have about 200 plus course hours of osteopathic manipulative medicine. And these are things that students who are aspiring to enter medical school and want to go into osteopathic medical school would be able to learn some of these and experience these while going through this mentorship program. So the osteopathic mentorship program, what is the impact that this has in the SNMA as a whole? Number one, it's serving to support the needs of the SNMA through mentorship. I feel like the SNMA, one of its biggest goals is to provide mentorship to aspiring students, especially underrepresented students. And informing these mentorships, we're also increasing the awareness of the osteopathic programs and the tenets and things of that nature. And also, like I said earlier, increasing the osteopathic database so that when SNMA does have future events, they have a subset group of people that they can call on to participate in those things. So just briefly again about the importance of this program, mainly to support, the future of underrepresented students, but also to foster these relationships that were made through the mentorship program, not just in the program itself, but afterwards. Mentorship is extremely important. Most of my mentors, if not all of them, I met at AMEC, and those relationships have been so important and vital. And I believe that this program will help other students to find those mentorships. So a little bit about how my project was broken down. I had some goals and I had some ideas and actionable things in order to execute those goals. The first was to recruit mentors and mentees in order to have the program. This was done by doing a survey that we sent out to the region, to the RDs, to Facebook, Instagram, anywhere that we could get it out for those who want to be interested. The next step was to actually create the database of DO so that they can serve as the mentors. And then the third step was to pair mentors and mentees based on their program of interest, whether they are interested in a certain specialty, where they are located in the country. And then the final step was how this project and how this mentorship program can be sustained for years to come. So this is a picture of what the mentor and mentee recruitment survey looked like when it went out. As you can see, there was a QR code that when it went sent around, you can scan it and use that to fill it out. We use this to gather information from our mentees and mentors. And for the mentees, it was an amazing amount of participation. We had about 120 SNMA students that filled this out and wanted to be a part of the program, and that's just great. So I broke this down into some actionable items. The first part of the program started in September, and that was just trying to brainstorm ideas and how to increase participation of the osteopathic physicians. Then I moved on to the phase of contacting the Alumni Affairs Committee and the National Medical Association. This part was to create the pool of mentors that could serve. Then the next phase is I made a check-in sheet to help guide the relationship between the mentors and the mentees while they're having their interactions. So they have ways to jot down their ideas, track their progress, and just plan things as they're going, and also have ways to reflect on their growth and things that they've learned throughout the program. And midway throughout the program, and finally, just last week on Monday, we sent out the post program goal. Mainly, this is to check in to see how well the program was doing, and also to see any feedback that we could use in order to continue this program in the future. These are just some snapshot pictures of the responses from our students. As you can see in the corner here, one of the biggest drawbacks we had in the beginning was we only had about 9 mentors that submitted the survey, and we had 120 mentees. So it was kind of a challenge in pairing them all, and unfortunately, not all mentees were able to get a mentor this cycle. This is some pictures of what the check-in sheets look like. These were just there to help guide the relationships as well and have them be able to mark down their ideas and track their progress. And these can be used for the future programs as well. This is also just a picture of the check-in sheet that I created that the students used. And this was sent out when we paired the mentees with the mentors to help them have an outline of when the check-in sheets would need to be turned in, when the midway and post-reflection sheets were be turned in, and the reminder of AMEC that will be taking place next weekend. This is what the post and mid reflection sheets look like. These were also sent out, and this is how we gathered the information about how the continuation of the program was going, any feedback, and any positives that I will share next. Some great things that we saw from the program is those that are interested in osteopathic medicine learn that they are able to practice OMT in practice. As you can see here, they mention a lot about how being connected with the DO was great for them and how their relationships were very open and they learned a lot and a lot of things that they can take into their future. The sustainability of this program mainly is done by the co-vice chair, as their role is the mentorship of the osteopathic committee. So this program can be continued on as the co-vice chair role. And also a national FLP fellow can also be involved to help get the word out there and bring the awareness, especially at AMEC, and creating a bigger database and where to put the mentor contact information. Some challenges that I experienced doing this is, like I said before, there were only 9 osteopathic physicians that did the survey. So it was a challenge trying to pair some. Some of the mentors that did do it have to have more than one mentee. Another drawback was reaching out to the SNMA Alumni Affairs to get the contact list of the past osteopathic physicians. And the final obstacle was trying to plan a space for the mentors and mentees to be able to meet at AMEC. So hopefully next year we will be able to have that in fruition. And my just major takeaways from this program is it really helped with project managing, increasing the osteopathic database, and just increasing the need and the awareness for the mentorship that's needed within the SNMA community. Thank you all for your attention, and thank you again to my project manager, Monique, and to the vice president and national vice president that helped give the connection with the National Medical Association.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much for your project. You had a lot of congratulations and just good support in the chat coming through. I'll just put some up on the screen for you. It was just nice to see that. And just nice to see what your project had to say. I think what you really capture with this project is the fact that we really do need to figure out way more robust way to maintain the relationship we have with our osteopathic doctors so that they can be able to help the next generation of osteopathic doctors who are coming up in their shoes. I think people do forget that the SNMA covers all medicine, not just ND, but also DL. And so this project highlights that, and it's really important. So thank you for that. Hopefully continues. Hopefully there's a sustainability plan set in place so that the next chairs, DO chairs, can really take on the leadership of creating that database and maintaining this mentorship program. Kudos to you for the work you've done. I just thank you for that.
Thank you.
Next up, we have another FLP fellow, and we have Abi giving her presentation. Let me bring her to the screen.
Hello.
Go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to my presentation. So I worked on the MAPS Community College Initiative pipeline. My name is Abiba Oshobuge Suleiman. So today we're going to be talking about a little bit of a background about my project, some goals we set, the pipeline timeline, some plans and obstacles we faced, as well as where we're going to be moving forward with the project. So I'm originally from Lagos, Nigeria. So shout out to my Nigeria folks. I went to undergrad, started off at San Jose City Community College, and I got my bachelor's from UC Davis. And I'm currently a third-year medical student at St. George's School of Medicine. I've been involved with SNMA for about 2-3 years now. I'm also currently the education and research project manager for a nonprofit called Sickle Cell 101. That's one of the big things I'm really passionate about, sickle cell disease. Free time, you catch me cooking, hiking, and I love traveling. So a little background about this project. Why community college? So as someone who started her undergrad years at a community college, this project was pretty personal for me. Community college students need more access to organizations like SNMA. While I was at my community college, I had no idea what SNMA was. So there's need for resources to help actually equip future medical professionals while they're in the beginning of their journey. So this project is really meant to help bridge the gap that is currently there to provide students who go to community college with resources that would aid their success on their journey to and through medical school. So some of the goals that we have, we wanted to really create a connection between a community college and a MAPS or SNMA chapter. So MAPS is the version of SNMA at undergrad campuses. So we also wanted to establish that connection through the pipeline. And we were thinking, how do we just make sure this is not just a one-time project? We had inside of the pipeline, we have a mentorship and mentor and mentee aspect of it. So that would actually guarantee a longevity of the program. So basically, all of these components are supposed to help make sure we provide community college students and just help them through community college, through med school and beyond. This is what the timeline kind of looked like. We started off in August brainstorming. So we came up with what the pipeline should look like, criteria for applying into the pipeline. So basically MAPS and SNMA chapters, we're going to apply to the pipeline and then select a community college that's close by that they would be working closely with. The application launched in December, and I'll give you the updates as to what happened now. So this is kind of what the flyer looked like to the right. And this is a more specific detail with dates of what we actually did. This is a picture of what the application looked like. So, like I said, there's different aspects to the pipeline. We created 3 different tracks. We also gave flexibility as to how the tracks could look like, but we also emphasized the mentor-mentee program track was mandatory. So each SNMA or MAPS chapter could actually select one other track to add to the mentor mentee track. So the first track, being the mentor mentee, was to help pair students with mentors who are already ahead in their journey. And this was the mandatory one. Another track was the events track. This included the MAPS or SNMA chapter hosting events that the community college students could attend, or even webinars or mixers. They had the flexibility to be creative as to how they wanted to implement this track. We also have the monthly or quarterly newsletter track, and this involved putting together information however way that was possible: a website, a blog, newsletters. Again, this is the part where creativity comes in. And this was going to be was to share internships, scholarships, research opportunities, conferences with the chosen community college that they picked. These were also some of the questions that we asked for the MAPS and the SNMA chapters to fill out. So we launched the application in December. We also had a way of connecting San Jose City College and San Jose State University in California, Northern California. And we picked this, this is in Region 1. We picked this specifically because that's where I went to school and familiar ground. So even after sending out the application nationwide, we wanted to make sure we had one particular one that we were going to use as the guinea pig to make sure that this pipeline had all the things that it needed. We also served as a resource just in case the SNMA or MAPS chapters needed help, and as well as the mentor-mentee program, like I said, to help with longevity of this project. Some of the challenges we anticipated were lack of applicants, and just not enough creativity when it comes to implementing the pipeline tracks, and just being able to be on track with the goals that we've set for this program. Unfortunately, we faced all of these challenges. We didn't receive any applications. So we tried other things. We tried reaching out directly to MAPS chapters in Region 1. We also reached out in other regions. And then this opened up a new issue that we discovered. So we now see that currently MAPS is struggling with active MAPS chapters in different regions. And then we also tried tracking the community college student registration statuses with AMEC 2023. We weren't able to get that information. So moving forward, we're going to take a few steps back. So we would like to add on the next AMEC, when the applications go out or for registration, we want to be able to collect the data that specifically asks for community college students. So students are able to signify if they are from a community college. That way we are able to actually start up new projects from there, reach out to those people based on information collected from them. We can run surveys, so that way we can see how we can best meet their needs and just know really what the needs are. We also would like to establish MAPS chapters in community colleges. This is also something we discovered that it doesn't say in the bylaws or Constitution of SNMA currently that there's chapters at community colleges. So we need to establish that as well. And just being able to gauge the interests of community college students. We know that there's some community college students attending AMEC, but we don't really have a way to contact them or specifically serve that community. So also promoting AMEC in a way where they can see how much benefit that they are going to get from coming to AMEC. Highlighting community colleges and including them in publications and announcements. And we've done this with the international medical graduates, so I know for sure that we can definitely establish this as well for community college students. So also a committee specifically for community colleges would be amazing, just like we have for the international medical graduates, because that way all of these ideas and goals and projects, future projects that want to be continued, are able to we're able to actually control and track that we are actually doing these things for community college students. I just want to say a special shout out and thank you to Kiera. She is the MAPS Vice Chair for Regional Affairs. She was my project manager. Also, thank you to the National MAPS chapter, as well as my fellow FLP fellows and the entire FLP board. Thank you. Any questions?
Beautiful, beautiful. You had a lot of people giving you praises as you were doing your presentation. There was one from Anastasia. Anastasia, thank you for highlighting such an important topic. A stronger mentorship with community college students is needed to further diversify medicine. And I have to agree with her. She was a past FOP fellow. But this is a really important topic because one of the things that I was also working on before coming to medical school was working with the local community college and was just so dumbfounded by the fact that they didn't know about the SNMA. So I think a lot of the work that needs to be done is just purely just telling people what the SNMA is to people who are pre-med and in community college. I think there's like an opportunity, a window of opportunity for the first 2 years for that to happen. And I think it takes a team more than just one person, but but for the work you did do and for the troubleshooting that you did do, I think that was important. Please, please, please document that so people know how to approach that same issue if that were to come up the following years to come. So beautiful presentation. I really do think this is important, and I can see this working with the maps. Maps is so robust, and so being able to connect it to you, and I think that you found that sweet spot would be really important. So great job.
Thank you.
Next, we have Kaylin Crawford. Thank you, Abiyat. And she will be doing her strategy team project. I just want to highlight strategy team is normally 3 people, and Kaylin has been a trooper for being able to continue her project as a single individual. So I'm bringing her onto the screen. Cannot wait to see what you have been able to accomplish within this year, and we really appreciate everything.
Thanks, Amara. I hope everybody can hear me. Thank you for people who are viewing and just getting a chance to hear about all of our projects and our work over the past year. I'm going to be presenting as a part of the Strategy Team Projects Fellows on Data Acquisition Systems within the SNMA. So our agenda this evening will look at just an introduction, project background, a little bit about my final proposal over this last year, and then looking towards the future as part of the sustainability plan. So a little bit about me. I'm currently an M1 at Emory School of Medicine. I went to Georgia Tech and I got a degree in biomedical engineering. And a fun fact about me, I'm hoping to practice in cardiology as well as cardiovascular research. So the opportunity with this project, the SNMA currently uses a number of different data acquisition systems to collect information at the national and regional level. So by evaluating the existing data capture systems within SNMA over this past year, I was able to propose a more standardized and integrated system to be able to retrieve that information and for it to be used for all members of the SNMA, from the executive leadership level, particularly the Strategic Planning Council, and then even for individual chapter members. So my main mission with this project was, like I said, creating a standardized and integrated comprehensive system to organize data for all members within the SNMA, and hoping that implementing this new plan in the future can enhance the range of data collection and storage for all members throughout the year in a more structured manner. So in the first phase, that was primarily targeted towards investigation and research, and a lot of what went into that phase was an audit of data capture systems, comparative analysis with other organizations, as well as meeting with some key stakeholders. And some of the main insights that I found through that process was that the SNMA currently has 9 major sources of organizational data that I have listed on the right, some of those namely being your membership, which many members are familiar with, and then chapter report forms as well as regional report forms. Some of the major organizations that we compared with were like the AMA and the NMA and AMSA, which have pretty salient valid models for organizing data in a way that can be easily accessed, particularly by upper leadership. And in reaching out to different members at varying levels of leadership within SNMA, there was an express interest in optimizing the flow of information, especially to top leadership individuals, without creating new types of data that would maybe burden the systems that are already available. And so in phase 2, that was mostly a design and intervention of the project plan. So I developed a method to strengthen the data capture systems that are currently available. And some of the considerations I made during that process were security, resource overload, the ease of use of a system that I'd be proposing, and then the cost, of course. And some of the recommendations that I came up with based on those considerations of security, making sure that SNMA's data would be in a secure place, and then resource overload, making sure that I wasn't introducing a learning curve for any members in using a new interface, and also the cost associated with using cloud platforms, especially for large organizations. So taking into all of those things into consideration, the main recommendation that I converged upon was a more robust utilization of the Microsoft Cloud Storage Services, a version of which is already sort of used within SNMA, but just proposing a way that that could be done in a more efficient manner. So with OneDrive, for those who aren't familiar, some of the advantages is that it's already a system that for students and faculty and physicians in academia have already had experience with, as well as it accommodates a diversity of data formats that are utilized by many different levels within SNMA. And some of the disadvantages may be the cost associated with expanding it in the way that could be used better by SNMA. So as far as the project implementation, I wanted to focus on a sustainability plan for how, after my tenure with the program, how this proposal could be actually implemented in the future. And what that sustainability approach focused on a restructuring of the current OneDrive ecosystem, a requirement of quarterly data entry to make sure that data is frequently and regularly being uploaded, so that way things are just staying up to date and current, and then also a training for any new users who aren't familiar with the platform. And so on that point of OneDrive restructuring, some of the main interfaces that I proposed were just organizing more how a user or member within SNMA would interact with OneDrive, and that's what's presented here. So you have, say I was a chapter president, I would go into my OneDrive account with my school's email, and I would be able to click on regions. I would find my region 4 for me being in Georgia, and then I would go to a chapter report forms, and I would be able to upload that data pretty easily. And then on the other side, that data would also be able to be accessed by other members who have the correct permissions. And a question that arises in proposing this process is, okay, well, how do you make sure and ensure that people are actually utilizing this system regularly and are actually holding themselves accountable, even as chapter leadership and regional directors, to putting their data and uploading their data in a regular and efficient manner? Because I know in the systems that are available now, there might be the infrastructure in place, but there isn't necessarily a protocol for making and ensuring people are uploading their data in a regular fashion, so that way it's always up to date. So that's where I converged upon data entry protocols, and that would be outlined in a policies and procedural manual similar to what exists at the organizational level, but just touching on some more data entry and security points, requiring quarterly entry for all members who have a responsibility for uploading data. So at the chapter level, that would be chapter presidents, regional director level, that would be forms that are associated with their responsibilities, and so on and so forth as you escalate up the organizational levels. And all of that would be outlined in this data entry policies and procedure manuals that can be used by any member if they have any questions about what they're expected to put into place and to be able to contribute to the OneDrive system. And so, as far as training, I wanted to touch on this just because not everybody has fluency in cloud services or data storage. And so, just making sure that those people are accommodated well as well in any new proposal. So, in this slide, I present just an idea of what could be presented on the SNMA website. So for a user that wasn't familiar with using cloud services, storage services, they could go onto the SNMA website. They could find this landing, which describes how to use the SNMA OneDrive. And so if you would scroll down, if you were a chapter president, you would find where it would say chapter members instead of board of directors or national committees. And then you would be able to explore what you are actually required to upload and at what time points throughout the year. As I mentioned, quarterly would probably be ideal. And then how to navigate the system as well as organizing your files. That way the system isn't burdened with a bunch of superfluous information. And then also how to upload and share so that way it's available for other members to see as well. And so some lessons learned over the course of this year were that many operational challenges can be addressed by really digging into and enriching the existing infrastructure. In this case, that was using a system that is used in some capacity within SNMA now, but just optimizing it in a way. And that kind of reduces the burden of learning a new system for members, especially when you have an organization of such volume like SNMA. Organized data storage is integral to tracking progress and measuring outcomes. I think that's the only way that you can progress forward and really understand how you can serve your members and then the community in a more efficient and impactful way. And then lastly, that the responsibility of efficient data entry is shared amongst all SNMA members. I think a lot of times it falls on people who are in leadership positions to sort of run after and, find where everything is. But if I, even as an individual SNMA member at my school, for instance, have an efficient way for uploading and sharing information with others, it makes everybody's job easier within the SNMA. So I want to thank everybody who's listed, just some acknowledgements over the course of this year, the project manager, some regional directors, and some committee members that we had the pleasure of speaking with, as well as Niat, who was very helpful over the course of this project, and some members who were also active in the early stages of this project, Tosin and Sydney. And I will open the floor for questions now.
That was great. I think what people don't realize is that the data acquisition part and being able to do that in an efficient manner really can underscore or really make robust the data you do have. If you can't collect it, then you don't have the data. And so one thing I thought that was really interesting was your third point on bringing in or using anybody who's an SNMA member to actually put in the data. Have you thought about how that would be and in what form and shape that you would like to do that?
Yeah, so I think one of the major challenges that was identified early on in the project was that not everybody has the same permissions to even access the system. So
Right.
initially in this proposal, there's a focus on some of the high yield documents that would be collected like at the chapter level, that would be like chapter report forms, and creating a process where those could be efficiently accessed. And then maybe in the future, as we're looking towards actually integrating this into the current Microsoft Office system that's used, creating a maybe protocol for expressly stating what exact documents would be required by every single type of member within SMA, if that answers your question.
Sure. Yeah, that definitely does. I think the more we can decentralize who gets to put in information, the easier it might be to collect that information. Then it becomes a question as whether or not we're having the appropriate information being collected. And I think your project also speaks to how to do that. So great work across the board. And Nia also put in a little shout out to you here. Amazing work, Kaylin. Proud of your hard work this year. Looking forward to seeing your future leadership within SNMA. Hope to see SNMA implement your project within the structure of SNMA. So wonderful work. And it's just, we can just see it through your presentation. So thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Next up, we have Minnie, and I'll add you to the screen. And you can take it away. You're on mute. Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Hi, good afternoon, good evening, I guess depending on where you are. Hi, my name is Minnie Ajayi, and I will be presenting my analysis of SNMA Presents The Lounge, which is the official podcast of the Student National Medical Association. So just to have a brief introduction about me, I am from New Jersey, and I've been involved with the SNMA for about 6 years now through MAPS, through my undergrad chapter. And this is, again, just a little bit about me on this slide. So today's agenda will include the background of my project, goals, my project timeline, future plans, and obstacles and challenges that I faced throughout the duration of the NFLP program. So just to provide a bit of background, SNMA Presents The Lounge exists to further the mission of the SNMA as a destination for relevant conversation, hot topics, and current events surrounding underrepresented people in medicine. And I'm sure you've probably heard a lot about it today, but of course the mission of the SNMA is to support current and future underrepresented minorities in medicine, address the needs of underserved communities, and increase the number of clinically excellent, culturally competent, and socially conscious physicians. So my goal initially was to actually create a podcast for the SNMA. So I guess that speaks to a bit of the identified issue with that we identified. So, lack of engagement and awareness of the podcast, of course, would result in limited reach. So my identified solution was to establish a feedback survey for the SNMA community to really provide feedback on ways we can improve awareness, engagement, and also really just meet the needs of all members of the SNMA, which ranges from pre-med students to post-baccalaureate students who are out of undergrad and in between that med school phase, and then of course medical students. And my sustainability plan / longevity plan is really just to continue survey distribution post NFLP to really establish a feedback loop and make sure that, again, we're really improving the podcast based on feedback to meet the needs of all SNMA members. So my project timeline started in August, around the start of NFLP. Initially was just project brainstorming, really identifying objectives that would help to increase the awareness of the podcast after finding out about it. September was when I established contact with my External Affairs Committee chairperson, Khadijah Sampson. Phase 3 started in October, which is where I altered project objectives to really reflect the short-term goals of the podcast subcommittee. December was phase 4, where we developed the feedback survey and brainstorm distribution channels. So I'll speak to that a bit later on in the presentation, as that was definitely kind of where the delay was in moving my project forward. And January was where we also redesigned the survey, had some check-ins, especially around NLI, National Leadership Institute, for those that may not know. And then February and March was the survey launch, data evaluation, and the final check-ins on the project, culminating in this presentation. So here we have the survey. I'm not sure if you all can see it, but it does include just information about who we're reaching out to. So whether they're pre-medical students, post-baccalaureate students, medical students. Also wanted to kind of get an idea of who we're hearing from in the survey. So I included questions about the region that they were coming from. And then, of course, the questions ranged from, awareness of the podcast to seeing if people also listen to similar podcasts that obviously touch on the same subject. And then also just really seeing like what people are looking to get out of an SNMA podcast and why people would choose to tune into the podcast. And then, of course, trying to see gauge time and length of podcast, as well as better ways to promote the podcast. Because, of course, being someone who's a very big podcaster, I didn't actually know that we had a podcast. So I guess that just, again, really goes to show that we do need to do a better job of promoting the support for the podcast and what we have going on. And then, of course, we just ask specific questions really to see and gauge interest of what members are looking to see from the podcast, which we'll get into as well. So from the survey, we had 100% of respondents that were actually aware of SNMA Presents the Lounge, which I found quite interesting considering I didn't, but of course I'm not the only person in the SNMA. So it definitely was helpful to know that people were aware of it. So I think something that we really wanted to just focus on in, coming stages is really just making sure we're promoting more. And I think there was a definitely good even split of people that responded depending on where they were in their medical journey. We had majority of people that responded be medical students. As you can see on the right-hand side, we have the region distribution. There was a low number of respondents due to kind of the delay in timeline for the projects. We had about 6 respondents overall, ranging from Region 2, Region 4, and Region 6. So obviously underrepresentation of about 7 of 10 regions of the SNMA, but this is definitely a good start, and we're definitely hoping to continue accepting survey responses as the year goes on. And of course, we had pre-med students and post-bac students as well fill out the survey, which is good. So some of the feedback that we received was, about 5 of 6 respondents do prefer 45 minutes for a podcast on average. And none of the respondents actually listened to similar podcasts. So I think this is definitely a good opportunity to really capitalize on and make sure that we're, again, reaching the population of the SNMA and really tailoring the podcast to meet their needs. People tuned in for the following reasons: motivation, advice, education, really to learn more about the organization, relatability, as well as interesting topics and stories. People suggested promoting more on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, Instagram Reels, TikTok, especially with the influencer space, quote unquote the medfluencer space. There are definitely a lot of Black medfluencers that could definitely also help to promote the podcast as well. And then of course the SNMA does provide email blasts, I believe, on a weekly basis. So definitely using that as an opportunity to promote the podcast as well was highlighted in the survey responses. So, future plans include building a brand as a medical student, which I think is definitely something that I would definitely benefit from, but also motivational empowerment, especially with post match. So, really just establishing like what's next for people who have matched into residency. But I think also just think something that comes to mind now is something that would be beneficial for people who don't match as well. Just having some sort of like resource through the podcast to really provide that for students. A specialty series, which also would speak to one of my earlier objectives in terms of collaborating with Sowing Seeds, which is a programmatic initiative with the SNMA to establish an understanding of different specialties and really just make sure that members are aware of the opportunities that are available to them post medical education. Another highlight was normalization of medical journey struggles, which I'm sure we can all relate to here, especially also, again, like I mentioned, with the possibility of not matching, definitely something important to highlight. Insight on important medical topics / politics and medicine, which I think is definitely very critical in this time that we're in. Step-by-step guides on relevant processes such as residency applications, interviewing, and then of course navigating racism in workspaces and rotations, as that's something that we definitely have the potential to come into contact with. So some of the obstacles and challenges, like I mentioned, were very few and partial survey responses, so that definitely limited the understanding of how the wider distribution of the SNMA, SNMA's understanding of the podcast and really just getting their feedback. One of the main issues was the distribution through authorized SNMA channels. As a former MAPS president, I was kind of just used to doing things in a way that was kind of more word of mouth. So my initial plan was to reach out to local SNMA chapters that I'm familiar with and just have them distribute it that way. But after speaking with my project manager, she mentioned that it was critical to make sure that I was including upper leadership and really how I decided to go about that. So that was how we decided to go through social media instead of the alternative route. And then, of course, staying on track with the project timeline. Like I said, there was definitely some things that pushed it back, as well as personal challenges for myself. And then, of course, the lack of representation from 7 of the 10 regions in the SNMA. So the hope is to again push the survey out to make sure that we are again getting that feedback and making sure that we can really make sure that the podcast is meeting the needs of SNMA. So I want to thank you all so much for joining me on my presentation, and a special thank you to Khadijah Sampson, the External Affairs Committee co-chairperson, as well as my project manager, the External Affairs Committee, the podcast subcommittee, and the NFLP board. And if you'd like to reach out or have any questions, please let me know. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This was great. I think just realizing the importance of having a podcast is another means of SNMA to connect with our constituents. I think it's important. And yes, I actually knew we had a podcast. And I think the only time I've really listened to it and seen it popping is right after AMEC, when they have like that post AMEC, like what happened during AMEC, like just recapping everything. That's why I thought it was really popular. I wish we can continue that throughout the year. And also just from a perspective of like diversifying SNMA's assets, like we might be able to get sponsorships because of the podcast that we do. And
exactly.
So I definitely think this is something that if you build, they will come. I think we do have the capacity to do so. I mean, clearly we've done it in the past, but I think just because one of your things was like trying to get representation from more of the region so that we are able to know what people want. I mean, if we start off with what we think we want, like if I was into this podcast, what would I want?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a very good start from the beginning right there. And people probably will start joining when they see the importance of the podcast. So definitely good. And at the basic level, you can even just like recap what was in the newsletter, and then dive deep into different aspects of that. But yeah, this was great.
Thank you so much, Mara.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Last, we have one more strategy team group to present. And together, the team of Sayrona and also Stephanie will be presenting on their strategy team project. So I'll bring them up to the stage. Hi, Stephanie.
Hello.
Hi, Sayrona. You are on mute, Sayrona, so this is perfect. We can.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Now we can hear you, and now bring up your presentation, and you guys can take it away.
Okay, wonderful. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stephanie Taylor, and on behalf of Strategy Team 3, Data Process System Transformation, we will be presenting to you our final analysis and implementation process of our project. The agenda for our presentation this afternoon is noted as below. We will be discussing the team introduction, project statement and goals, project design, analysis, limitation and barriers, sustainability plan, the SWOT analysis, and any questions and comments. To give you a brief introduction of my co-fellows and myself.
My name is Sayrona. I'm a pre-medical student and I graduated from the University of Maryland, College Park in 2020. Some of my interests include The Office, the show, skincare, and classical film.
And my name again is Stephanie Taylor. I'm a non-traditional pre-medical student who graduated from Texas A&M University. My area of focus was health policy and management. And one of my interests that I am really interested in is medical journalism. And my team member and I would like to highlight our principal investigator, Dr. Emily Cooper. She has been instrumental in providing guidance during our project analysis and has provided valuable insight in her role as a Strategic Planning Council member. And we would like to give you a special thank you for your support during this process. To give you a brief overview of our project statement and goals, my team members and I are trying to inform the Student National Medical Association about different methods of measuring the strategic progress of the objectives outlined in the 2020-2023 strategic plan to ensure the longevity of the strategic plan for the future development of the organization. In addition, we are looking to develop a sustainability plan for future objectives outlined in the strategic plan. During our project analysis, we were constantly examining the following questions noted below. To further break down our thought process of our data process system transformation research project, we considered the methods that would be best used for data acquisition, research, and also analysis, and also what platforms would prove most effective for data presentation. We further identified the importance of utilizing a framework to track the progress of the objectives outlined in the strategic plan and the importance of ensuring that resources are effectively being used to further the advancement of the organization. Lastly, we considered utilizing a visual representation to not only visually present the progress within the SNMA organization, but to further show the transparency and the progress that the SNMA is currently achieving according to the outlined goals in the strategic plan. The 3 phases of the project implementation included data acquisition, data analysis, and including a visual representation of our deliverable. To further break down this analysis, in phase 1, we started to conduct the research and investigation phase of our project statement. During this phase, we were identifying how the SNMA collects data, where this data is stored, and how this data can be assessed. During phase 2, we had scheduled meetings with Dr. Cooper, our principal investigator, and researched different frameworks that the SNMA can utilize to measure progress of the goals outlined in the strategic plan. In addition, during phase 3, we assigned each team member roles and established our SMART goals as well. And in phase 3, we met with Dr. Cooper again, SNMA leadership and consultants to discuss the different data analysis methods that the organization is currently using and continue to gather data pertaining to the goals outlined in the strategic plan. And lastly, we utilize Microsoft Excel as the framework to track the progress of these goals. In addition, we explored Microsoft applications like Microsoft Power BI and Microsoft Visio to visually present our data analysis. During our research and investigation, we met with SNMA leadership and consultants to further acquire data analysis and research into our project statement. This is a list of SNMA leadership and consultants according to the planned scheduled meetings and national committees we contacted in this order. The SBC, as you can see, this is the strategic plan, the 2022-2023 strategic plan. The SBC is a group of individuals who are tasked with envisioning the future direction of the SNMA by outlining the strategic goals of the organization. These goals are outlined in the SNMA strategic plan. The SBC's current plan was developed in 2020 and with the completion of 2023 as the completion year. After conducting interviews with SNMA leadership and consultants, we decided to focus on the membership aspect of the strategic plan. The SNMA emphasizes the importance of membership by trying to recruit future and current physicians through the regional and chapter events, such as community service events, pipeline programs, and through the membership drive campaign. The SNMA continues to recruit and support current and future underrepresented minority medical students, addressing the needs of underserved communities and increasing the number of clinically excellent, culturally competent, and socially conscious physicians. With this in mind, we decided to proceed in conducting an analysis of the Strategic Planning Council's strategic plan on the goal on membership with analyzing the effectiveness of the membership drive. For the 2022 Membership Drive campaign, there were a variety of initiatives that the SNMA displayed to help recruit prospective members to the organization. Some of these initiatives included Membership Mondays, Why SNMA Wednesdays, and Feature Fridays.
As discussed earlier, the basis of our project is to identify a framework that can be utilized to both centralize the SNMA's data and visually present the progress of the organization. With this goal in mind, our team decided that the utilization of Microsoft applications would be most effective as the system is user-friendly, allows for the direct conversion of data to graph format, and can be utilized for years to come with little financial obligation. Pictured in this slide is a prototype of our project design. After collecting the information we needed, the raw data was transferred into an Excel sheet as depicted. Next slide. We then input the information into Microsoft Power BI. As you can see, the program is able to auto-generate accurate and precise visualizations that allow for the exploration of relationships and patterns within data sets. Additionally, this program allows for easy conversion of data into different presentation formats. This framework allows for easy and efficient data interpretation, which is extremely helpful in determining the progress of the SNMA regarding goals outlined in the strategic plan. Next slide. And here we wanted to include a video showcasing the analysis capabilities of Microsoft Power BI. And we can see if it will play.
So currently it's not playing, but this is the representation here.
Okay, yeah. So unfortunately it's not going to play, but we basically was going to include a representation of the fact that this system allows for further analysis by category. While in graph format, you can click different columns in a bar graph and it would affect the corresponding line graph. So that would have been cool to see, but unfortunately we're not able to play it. But we just wanted to showcase that this system allows for automatic statistic and insights into the data that we inputted without us having to do an extra step. Next slide. We also wanted to showcase how this framework can be used to measure progress within the SNMA. Before reaching out to consultants, our team conducted a review of the strategic plan and tried to collect data that aligned with those outlined goals. Pictured above is data we received from the National Membership Committee regarding the amount of new members who joined the SNMA following this past year's membership drive. This visual allows for SNMA leadership to examine how many members joined each month over the course of 2022. We also use this graph to examine how many new members joined during and after the drive. This analysis will help to speak to the effectiveness of the membership drive, a goal which is outlined in this strategic plan. The membership drive for this past year began August 9th, 2022 and ended on October 4th, 2022. As you can see, there was a noticeable growth in new members during this time period. This visual allows for the examination of how big of an impact the drive had on membership. This information can then be used to influence efforts for future drives. In the future, we hope to compare this data to that of previous years to assess if the drives are improving in efficiency each year. Next slide. Despite the progress our team has made towards our project goals, there were a few limitations that slowed our efforts. The first being lack of access to longitudinal data. Some of the data we received only encompassed the past year and not that of previous years, making analysis of progress over time a little more difficult. Additionally, the SNMA does not currently have a central location that houses all of the SNMA's data. This made data collection rather difficult as multiple individuals had to be contacted to receive only pieces of information. There was also some data that was only accessible to national SNMA leadership, like financial information and other sensitive information, which is necessary and understandable, but it did limit our data analysis capabilities. And lastly, response time. It would at times take us a few weeks to acquire the data requested or schedule meetings due to understandably busy schedules of all the SNMA student leaders. Next slide. Another important aspect of our project that we wanted to discuss and highlight was the sustainability plan. With these aspects implemented, we hope to ensure the longevity of this initiative. Firstly, we hope to enforce or ensure that there is a constant cross-collaboration between SNMA headquarters, board of directors, and national committee co-chairs. Unlike board of directors and committee co-chairs, SMA headquarters staff have less turnover, meaning they have more experience utilizing the organization's databases, such as YM, and can extract and monitor data and necessary information more efficiently. Secondly, we hope to create a standardized transition plan that includes a tutorial on how to utilize the organization's databases for data extraction and storage purposes. When speaking with our consultants, a few mentioned that they had a lack of familiarity with the databases that are utilized by the SNMA. This formalized training should be recorded as part of the initiation and transition into the board position, and would also allow our leadership to be confident in their ability to input and extract data into these systems. Thirdly, we hope to implement the use of a server or network as a centralized location for data storage and analysis. Although the Microsoft applications we have discussed earlier are still the chosen framework that we will use to assess the SNMA's overall progress, gaining access to the organization's data has proven to be a large obstacle in all our data acquisition efforts, and therefore our data analysis efforts. To simplify this process, we hope to, and to ensure future SNMA leadership can efficiently continue these changes, we discussed that using servers to centralize all of the SNMA's data would be extremely beneficial. With servers in place, information can be easily stored and distributed when needed, streamlining data processing efforts. We also wanted to utilize Microsoft Forms to measure the impact of SNMA affiliated events. This information would then be stored in these servers and networks that were discussed previously. Over the course of this year, our team discussed the importance of having standardized report forms submitted on a consistent basis to the server and network we hope to implement. That would include information regarding events and activities held, attendee demographics, membership information, etc. And this would allow leadership to keep a close track of the SNMA's reach, as well as ensure that the organization's efforts are making a consistent impact on our community. And lastly, we hope to potentially hire a statistician or a database administrator to help manage the organization's data. As we discovered in our efforts, data analysis is a large feat, and having someone who is professionally trained in managing data would allow for effective and efficient data analysis and storage capabilities. Next slide. Here we have an example of what we hope the Microsoft Forms will look like and what information we hope it will include. Information such as what kinds of events or activities are being hosted, how does this apply to the strategic plan, the current action items in place, etc. We hope this system will allow for the SNMA to see what impact the organization is making, the lives that the organization is touching, and aid in assessing what initiatives are currently in place to make progress towards goals outlined in the strategic plan. Next slide. Although our team is still conducting research into potential servers that can be utilized by the organization, so far we have identified RedCap as a potential option. This secure system offers free, easy-to-use methods for data collection and analysis. Additionally, it can house large amounts of data and has the capability of supporting an organization of the SNMA's size. We also want to discuss our SWOT analysis. So over the course of our project, our team did review the following: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. One of the main strengths we considered for this project was the utilization of a metric tool, such as the Microsoft Excel and Microsoft Power BI software, to measure the advancement of the outlined goals in the strategic plan of the SNMA. One of the weaknesses that we observed in our project analysis was a centralized location for data analysis and data collection. For example, if the SNMA is applying for a grant, having a centralized location to access the data to write the grant would be very beneficial. For our presented opportunities, we are continuing to analyze how the Microsoft Power BI software will provide a visual representation of the objectives outlined in the strategic plan. The Microsoft Power BI Pro provides a data dashboard that will help the SNMA organization track, analyze, and display data to visually see the performance of the overall organization. The benefits of a dashboard provides the capability to visually view the performance measurement, data transparency, and accessibility, and forecasting. And lastly, one of the possible threats we have considered are the unknown cost to integrate the Microsoft Power BI application into our data analysis process. We have met with a Microsoft application representative to discuss the further needs of the SNMA organization and what we will encounter when using the Microsoft Power BI Pro for data analysis. Currently, the Microsoft Power BI software for a nonprofit organization such as the SNMA costs about $3 per user per month. So initially, we hope to extend access to a select few, such as a statistician if one is hired, a member of the headquarters staff, etc. And then we hope to later expand that access to all board members. But that could also lead to a higher cost in the end. And lastly, we just want to thank and give a special thanks to our PI, Dr. Emily Cooper, the SNMA and FLP leadership team, and all of the consultants who have and are currently providing assistance for our project. We thank you so much for all your assistance throughout the year. And now we just want to open the floor to any questions or comments that anyone may have.
Wonderful job, ladies. So we've had this data analysis type of thread going through all the projects, and your project is essentially saying, okay, now that we have the data, now that we know how to analyze it, how do we actually display it in a way where people can access it really quickly? And I think this dashboard idea is essentially, yeah, it's what's necessary and what's needed. I can foresee a situation in which we take the dashboard idea that was created for the Strategic Planning Council and also extend it to the national committees and also maybe even to regional directors so they can also be monitoring their data as well. So kudos to you for the work you guys have put into that. I really like the fact that you guys have taken it to the next step and try to think, how do we actually implement this? What will it take to do it? What are our costs associated with that? And being able to reach out to a Microsoft representative and seeing what that might actually entail. I think that was wonderful, and definitely write that down for somebody who's taking this up next year. And hopefully, if you guys decide to take it up as well, so you just have an idea of what you've already covered and what you've already established. So great job, ladies. I thoroughly enjoyed this presentation, and it was a nice way to wrap up all of our presentations today. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that.
Thank you. Wow, that is the end, everybody. That was the end of our FLP final presentations. Thank you to all of our fellows. FLP is nothing without our fellows. Thank you to all of our coordinators. Without them, this team could not have been successful this year. And thank you to my co-director, Stacy. She was impeccable and amazing to work with this year. And so with that, I just want to say to anybody out there who's interested in becoming an FLP or interested in becoming a fellow for FLP, definitely reach out. I'm currently the FLP co-director, and we are looking, and well, the applications will go out soon for more fellows for the next 2023-2024 year. So if you're interested, definitely reach out and apply. It is a wonderful opportunity to not only build up your leadership skills, but also to utilize those leadership skills within the intimate setting of the SMA. As you saw with the presentations, you dive deep into how the SMA operates. If you want to understand how that works, then definitely this is for you. You dive deep into learning how to create professional presentations, learning how to be comfortable giving presentations, not only in person, but primarily also through webinars, because that's essentially the way the world is working now. So the goal of the FLP is not only to build future leaders, but also to give you the qualities, give you the things that you need to be able to be successful moving forward. So if that speaks to you, if that resonates with you, definitely apply to the FLP. And with that, that was a wrap. Thank you to everybody who participated. Thank you to everyone who listened in, who chimed in. Thank you to those who gave cheers and just like encouragement to our fellows. It was all taken in and all necessary and needed. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next week if you're able to make it, to the SNMA conference.